It is the 24th of the 7th, 2026. The time is 22 minutes to 9. And as always, that means that there are a gazillion today F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. F2 and FP1 are in the rear view as far as round 12, the Hungarian Grand Prix. And it is techie. It is Scuderia Ferrari redemption. Huh? Houseway? To what are you speaking, Cameron? Well, they look bloody quick, I'll tell you that. I've heard chatter about them having the best chassis around medium to low speed turns. Well, proof of concept today, right? They were rapid. We will double click on it and speak to it. We'll talk about Lewis Hamilton's anniversary of the now infamous speech that I am useless and the only solve is to get rid of the driver. They need to replace me. How times change in F1A. It feels like resurgent Lewis Hamilton potentially on the precipice, of a record-breaking 8th. Potentially, we'll talk about Ocon. Motorsport magazine writing that Ocon potentially, Pablo Elizalde, again for the avoidance of doubt, or F1 journals are created equal, some are created more equal than others. Pablo Elizalde is one of the goatiest ones. He says that he thinks the 18-3 deficit that Ocon suffers from as far as Ollie Behrman is concerned, that potentially there's unfairness in there. That Ollie Behrman is getting favourable treatment. We will talk about it. So too, we've got to talk about Aston Martin. Alonso said one thing, Gary Anderson said another, Mark Hughes of Motorsport magazine and the race formerly has said something else. So too, we'll talk about the George Russell context because Mercedes have come out and done one of these mea culpa settings. We'll talk about Verstappen, destroying the rules, and we'll talk about Lando Norris responding to both George and Maximilian Verstappen. Oh, the humanity. In the first instance, there's been upgrades. There has been upgrades all over the show. Here's what you need to know. McLaren have bought 5, all at the Auto Performance. Mercedes, 1 performance and 1 C-Spec, 1 for cooling, so therefore reliability. Red Bull have bought 3. Ferrari have bought 2, both at the Auto Performance. C-Spec, Williams, V-Carb, Formula Racer, have bought 2 at the Auto Performance and 1 C-Spec. Aston Martin have bought 16. This is chaos, chat. I swear. Okay, so listen, the story obviously looks something like this. That Adrian Newey, in fact, before I bring that up and show you, Adrian Newey came to the green shores thinking that he was going to nail it right, but ultimately he didn't have time, hadn't visited the Honda factory, so he was unaware that there was a deficit, let alone the length and breadth of it. Aston Martin are nowhere, 0. I'll show you some figures in a second that show you that they have not been getting better, they've been getting worse. And F1 is a game where what have you done for me lately as versus the rest is all that counts. It is relative. If you're a million miles away off the pace, then what's the point in even being in F1? Sponsors won't want their logos on your car. Why? It's parked up on track almost ad nauseum. So Aston Martin have said we need to fix this given Lawrence Stroll's not insubstantial investment in the team over the past couple of years. Here's what they've brought. And again, I'm not going to go for everyone. Front wing end plate, front wing nose, front corner, front floor body, floor fences, floor edge, diffuser, bloody Nora. Do you know what I mean? They are going in, and this as well. Side pod inlet, coke engine cover, cooling louvres, rear suspension, rear corner, rear wing, beam wing, rear wing end plate. They have bought the lot. However, Mark Hughes has put together a god-tier article where he says, yeah, they can do what they want to, but ultimately they're going to be judged on results, right? And when you look at them, as far as the first column, their percentage off of the pole, at Melbourne, they were 4.4%. If they were developing, you would expect them to get closer to that. As of, I don't know, Spa, let's say. Spa, they are 5.4% off of the pole time. 5.4. That's close to 107%, right? And if they were 107% adrift, then they would not be allowed to race. 5.4%. They're not getting better, they're getting worse to the tune of 1 percentage point. So that would give me pause for thought if I were Lawrence Stroll and I'd invested 350 million in a brand new factory and another 50 million, some say, in a wind tunnel to nail correlation. Listen, I think it's a bit techie. Mark Hughes in the rightmost column has the Q2 cutoff time, how far they were away from Q2. Melbourne round one, they were 0.9%. Spa, they were 2.9. Suffice to say, they've been outdeveloped roundly. Now, this is the get back, right? This is where you bring 16 upgrades with a view to fix it. Oh, and by the way, they don't even have themselves a power unit yet. Check out their time, their speed, excuse me, through the speed trap, 307 kilometers an hour. But I think this bodes well because they've done something to the chassis that improves it, even without the power unit upgrade, said to bring anywhere up to 90 brake horsepower. There's a couple of different things, that tangents, threads at which I want to pull as far as Aston Martin are concerned. In the first instance, Charles, you're an absolute gangster, mate. I appreciate you. Shouts out to all. Beaming in love from Comic-Con San Diego. Sung Jin, Kimi Sung Jin Q. What's happening in Hungary, Cav? Same, or surprise. Scuderia Ferrari, Sir Charles. Always far too kind, sir, but we'll get to it, mate. I mean, Scuderia Ferrari look rapid. And if you were a betting man, again, I looked at the odds pre FP1 and FP2, and Sir Lewis and Charles was up there. You could have got 7-2 odds. Those aren't bad. Plus 350. Now you'd be lucky to get 7-4 on either one of them. Absolutely no chance. Big favourites are they over there in Hungary by dint of their performances through FP1 and FP2. Lest we forget that Sir Lewis isn't bad around here either. The winningest driver in F1 history. 8 victories, I want to say. 9 poles. If he goes and bangs another pole tomorrow, he will be the driver with the most poles in F1 history around any circuit ever. Suffice to say, therefore, that Lewis Hamilton is something of a specialist, but I digress. This is Fernando Alonso, who, by the way, brought his firstborn to the track. It feels like a circular moment, the circle of life. Simba, the Lion King, because where did Fernando Alonso win his first Grand Prix so many moons ago? Hungary. Here's what Fernando Alonso had to say. He said that the car's easier to drive in. He knows now that they have correlations, so their only way is up. Therefore, listen, Fernando, what was Lance Stroll's car doing out on track? Now, Adrian, he was quick to kibosh this and say, listen, well, of course, sometimes you have reliability issues. They didn't hesitate to send Fernando Alonso back out on track because Adrian knew his steer was that suspension issue that took Lance Stroll out had nothing to do with the upgrades. But I mean, if you bring a gazillion and one upgrades and then your car is left like that out on track with all the sponsors' logos, bringing shame on the family name yet again, then Houston, we have a problem now. Check this out again. It's the optics aren't good for Aston Martin. They need to develop a car quickly now. They don't have long till some of these guys and girls, Aramco, Valvoline, are going to be looking at this like, hang on. Can you imagine this picture? Valvoline see yet again their logo on a car stopped out on track. That's not where they're paying the tens of millions for at all. Let me show you. This is important. Before we double click, I need to go into Aston Martin. But let me show you the sector times. Charles, here you go. Here's your evidence, mate. Sector 1, it is dominated by Scuderia Ferrari drivers. Lewis and Charles Leclerc followed shortly thereafter by one Maximilian Verstappen. Sector 2, Lando Norris puts in the quickest time around there. Charles and Lewis follow very closely thereafter. However, sector 3, again, same. It is Charles and it is Lewis and it's Max Verstappen. I tell you what, listen, that Scuderia Ferrari, I've heard a gazillion different people, Lando Norris included, say that car is the best around medium and low speed turns. That checks out, given what we saw in FP1 and FP2. I don't know, they're quick, and of course they've brought a brand new bloody wing, said to be more efficient, brand new actuator on there and bits and bobs. They are quick around here. However, it's not lost on me or you that it was 1 year ago around here that Lewis Hamilton, again, it took him to the brink, right? He said that, listen, they need to change the driver. That's the only action. Charles Leclerc's bloody on pole, wrestling the car around this track, and I am nowhere. Lots changed in a very short period of time, right? Ground effect is long now distant in the rear view, and now Lewis Hamilton, last of the late breakers, Mr. Harry Flatters, is all of a sudden extracting the best out of the car. Interesting, this. People have short memories, but I remember Lewis Hamilton struggling. I remember saying that Lewis wants to hang up his Nomex, that Father Time is undefeated, undisputed, and look, what did I know? Lewis Hamilton is back with a bang, apparently, some say, but he'll have to out-qualify tomorrow Charles Leclerc, who is joint favourite to drop it on pole. I think it would be decided on fine margins. What about Mercedes? Some are saying sandbag settings. I don't think they're sandbagging. I don't think this is a Mercedes track, given that they most likely, irrespective of whatever the FIA want to tell you, they most likely have the best power unit on the grid. What Hungary is not is a power-hungry circuit. It is low minimum speed. It's characterised by those turns, in fact. And so, of course, Scuderia Ferrari are going to do well around here for once. Let me show you this, though. In fact, let me speak to this. There's a couple of other big material bits and bobs, because Esteban Ocon have written an article on this chap, and it is important. In fact, then before we do that, let me tell you about FP1 and FP2 long runs, because you guys will want to know. On the soft compound tyre, Kimi Antonelli was quickest, 123.946. On the mediums, Maximilian Verstappen quickest on a 124.447, followed shortly thereafter by Russell, Lando Norris, Piastri, Ocon, Gasly, Behrman, Bottas. I didn't see too many people doing too many long runs, however, so I'm not sure, especially the Scuderia Ferrari lot, so I'm not sure how much you want to invest in this. Oh, and by the way, speaking to Esteban Ocon, this is important. I thought that Esteban Ocon was getting mollywopped. You've heard me on here with all the bluster. Esteban Ocon, that there will be in that Haas seat next year one Rafael Camara, because Scuderia Ferrari have asked of it, or for it to transpire, of one team Haas. However, 18-3 doesn't tell the whole story. Pablo Elizalde writes, he says that in Canada, as an example, again, in the first instance, the Haas has been up and down, right? They're not dissimilar to Mercedes and George and Kimi, that one day Kimi Antonelli will have the whip hand but DNF, and then the next day, similar thing with George, that the battery deployment is all over the show. That Haas car has been nothing if not temperamental. However, Pablo Elizalde cites this, that at Canada, round 5, Behrman finally managed to get onto 18 points with a gritty 10th position. It also transpired that that round offers the clearest evidence that this hasn't been an even fight. Oh, the humanity. What are we saying? That Esteban Ocon hasn't been getting the same machinery? Well, Pablo Elizalde expounds. He says Haas ran its 2 different cars, 2 different specifications that weekend. Behrman got the new aerodynamic package for qualifying and the race, while Esteban Ocon in Canada, round 5, was held over for the previous iteration of the car through Friday and the sprint, only receiving the brand new package once there was time on Sunday. Oh, the humanity. And I know this happens sometimes. It happened with Hajar and Lawson last time out, because Lawson didn't out-qualify Lindblad at the British Grand Prix. But that, I was not aware, chat. I didn't realise that had happened in Canada, that Haas had run Esteban Ocon through the sprint and qualifying with a deficient F1 car, or an upgrade deficient F1 car. Elizalde concludes, whatever else is true about the gap between them, for at least one weekend it was a decision made in the garage, not a difference decided on track. You know what? Can I be honest with you? I think this is a bit techie, chat. I think if I were Ayo Komatsu, I think I would prioritise Ollie Behrman as well. Why would you not? Scuderia Ferrari guy, you gotta stroke his shoulders, rub his feet, if indeed you want to keep him for the medium to long term. Given the fact that the likes of Red Bull, Ferrari too, when they've got a seat, all the big teams will be looking at this latest and greatest young hot prospect after an Antonelli and an Oscar Piastri, amongst others, Isaac Hadjar. Of course, you've got to keep this dude happy, right? Ollie Behrman, and Ollie Behrman even expanded upon Elizalde's thoughts in the press conference. Here's what he had to say. It's a tough situation what's happening at our team. We've been speaking about it a lot, but inconsistency between our parts has been quite high. I've been on the bad side of it sometimes. Esteban Ocon's been on the bad side of it sometimes. Overnight we can have changes to our car balance without expecting it. All of that is to say that it's not always been a fair fight. What? Huh? Are you pleading that you've been on the bad end, Ollie Behrman, of the fair fight or unfair fight? Insane. He says, I'm happy with what I'm doing, but the story's not necessarily what you see in the headlines always. I thought that Ocon was clear down the road from him, I'll be honest with you. I thought that he'd nobbled him. But even Ollie Behrman's saying that that's not always the case. Oh, and by the way, I need to talk to you about Aston Martin again, because that's the big bloody story. Lance Stroll's failure, the suspension apparently didn't involve an upgraded area. Upgrades are being shipped in overnight. That's your first bit. Alex Albon, again, confesses that he fears, looking at the Aston Martin and the speed that it's now taking through the corners with the old Adrian Newey high rate philosophy, the car looking like this. Albon says, this weekend is Aston Martin that we've got to try and beat in Q1. We're fast on the straights, but in many corners they're faster. Their raw race pace will be pretty good. It's scary, but of course, being Adrian Newey's car, it was to be expected. Now, this is where we get divergence, because Gary A doesn't sound impressed. Gary Anderson, of course, he says that as far as Aston Martin's developments, he says that I'm not really seeing any major differences compared to when the car was first introduced at Barcelona back in late January. Yes, aerodynamically it's a bit different. Aston Martin has had time to optimize its package around the same concept, but the front suspension that I questioned at the time in terms of how much anti-dive it has remains, which suggests Aston Martin either believe in it or found it too difficult to change mid-season. Interesting. Gary thinks they're barking at the wrong design philosophy tree, but Adrian Newey counters. He says, yeah, of course, we have upgraded a lot of the car, but it's part one of our upgrade package. More is to come over the next couple of races, not least of which a brand new Honda power unit, which some say are going to achieve anywhere up to 90 brake horsepower. Lest we forget, they were 15 kilograms overweight as well. And some are saying that Adrian Newey in this Part A upgrade has got that down to minimum weight. Oh, the humanity. I tell you what, this is going to get techie as far as Aston Martin are concerned. Mark Hughes, though, as far as his analysis, says a couple of different things. He's more optimistic than Gary Anderson, thinking that once they've lost the weight and once they've bought a brand new PU, that potentially they could be on to be level with who? Not Williams. No. We're not talking about Cadillac F1 or any of the other also runs. He says that they might be level with McLaren. Huh? McLaren? What are we doing? Aren't they the fourth best team on the grid? This is chaos. McLaren. Techie. And to Gary Anderson's point, Adrian Newey, yeah, he confesses for his sins. He says it's an evolution, not as far as the bits and bobs underneath the car, but anything outside of the car that touches airflow, that has changed. I tell you what, this is I don't know, chat. They're filling me with optimism. They're saying all the right things. The fact that they were so quick, notwithstanding the fact that they don't have the brand new power unit. What happens if Honda have done what they're supposed to do? Listen, I don't know. Watching you speak in the conference was an absolute snooze fest. The comment, I don't believe in setting goals, said that. I mean, don't you? But this is the problem, the Lemps. I don't think Adrian Newey is a team. I don't think he has team principle in him. The Gotius aerodynamics is, I bet you bottom dollar in F1, 1000%. But an inspirational leader, Adrian Newey, is not in that sense. An inspirational leader through action, through building and designing fantastically brilliant aerodynamically efficient F1 cars. Tick, tick. But an inspirational leader through his oratory skills, you bet your bottom dollar he is not. Did you Red Bull think when Isaac turned at the clutch? I didn't see it. They must be compromising Newey of pictures. It's, I see you're a chaos merchant, Sir John. Agreed. He's not a leader, is he? He's not going to once more onto the breach, young Sutton. No, he's not that type of. He just absolutely isn't that type of guy. As we round third, let me tell you about this. because we've spoken almost ad nauseum about George Russell. George said, I'm changing my driving style, but the car's still fudging broke. You heard him over the radio. I will remind you, if you did not, last time he was fuming, wasn't he? Fix your fudging car, he said, as near as makes no difference. What is going on? This doesn't work. Here's what George Russell had to say.
Oh, what the fuck happened with the sock down the straight? And no backing battery down the straight. Guys, unacceptable.
Also da dachte ich, diese Effe, das soll er sagen.
Unfucking acceptable.
Ja,
this whole
also das
weekend.
hat man ja gesehen, wie ein...
Fumigating. And as well he might be. Like, what's going on? What's happening to my state of charge? This is nonsense. Well, at the time, everybody was like, it's a little bit conspiratorial to think that Mercedes are sabotaging George Russell. But I'd say that whilst there might not be actors, Ray, there's definitely men. You see what Kimi Antonelli's doing. You understand that Toto now sees Kimi Antonelli as the next Max Verstappen, potentially even faster than Max Verstappen. Some say that's what Toto thinks about Kimi Antonelli. So of course there is mens rea. Actus is different. You need to prove something. And the likes of Hughes have got their investigative monocles out and double clicked on the circumstance around George and the start up until Leclerc at the Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix. Here's what happened. We know already there's a setting on those Mercedes cars that needs to be disabled to optimise for battery charge in the early running of a race just post-start. That setting in that Mercedes didn't turn off, and therefore they were left anywhere between 30 and 50% down George and Kimi Antonelli in that first segment of that race. In the second instance, as far as George is concerned, battery deployment. If you're Kimi Antonelli and you're racing Max Verstappen and you ease off the throttle, then you're going to get more battery deployment shortly thereafter, right? George did not do this. Car was still fudged though. There was software glitches, errors all over the shop, and George Russell and Mercedes are now singing from the same hymn sheet. He was not to blame, therefore. It wasn't just his driving style. Yeah, the driving style is to account for some of the deficit between Kimi Antonelli 9 times out of 10, but not the entirety, particularly around Spa-Francorchamps. And this is why this gets techie. Because George was like, yeah, I've been changing my driving style, but it hasn't been working. Here is what Lando had to say on George. And this is where we get, in fact, before I tell you this, let me tell you about Max Verstappen. Max has come out and said, you know what, as far as these rules and regs are concerned, they won't allow me to make a difference. Well, Lando Norris has gone full send on this, both Max and George. Here's what Lando Norris had to say. I've had chance to change my driving style. I'm going to read out the full quote. I'm going to go through the full quote because he's gone hard. You certainly can make the difference, says Lando Norris, in direct response to Max Verstappen. Obviously, some corners get a little bit more eliminated. Maybe it tightens up, but if you're a better driver, more corners are still corners to try and gain an advantage on everyone. You're still going to be, I don't know about this, Lando. Surely the opening gambit from George and Kimi Antonelli at the Belgian Grand Prix is evidence that this proves what you're saying, Lando. He continues, every single race I come into at the moment, I feel like I have to completely forget the last weekend and learn how to drive a new car, because that's how it is for us. Every driver is different, but for me, my whole career in F1 has been about how I can change my driving style every season. Well, you say that, Lando, but at the start of last season, before you got your suspension and your suspension geometry, I seem to remember, if I recall correctly, that you were strahugling that Oscar Piastri was mollywopping you, but I digress. And it continues, I think the more experience you have in Formula 1, the better equipped you should be. Wink, wink, George and Maximilian Verstappen. If you're not ready to adapt to a different car, then you're not at a good enough level. He's gone in there, hasn't he? He's getting his elbows like, yeah, you're doing all right, Lando, this year. But you don't want to, I don't know. I don't think it's time yet. This is the thing about Lando Norris 1.0. When he's having a good time of it, he starts to talk like this, doesn't he? That's why I always prefer underdog Lando that's losing rather than a Lando that's enhorabuena, full of chutzpah, and and vinegar. Here's what Lando Norris says: the better equipped you should be. If you're not ready to adapt to a different car, then you're not at a good enough level. It's our job. It's what we've got paid millions to do. It's to drive any car you get given, whether it's a good one, a bad one, an easy one, or a hard one. You have to do it. Bloody Nora. Who's paying you, Lando? Is it the FIA? What's going on it? This is chaos. He's a proper FIA shill, this chap, isn't he? Everyone to a man almost now is saying these rules and regs are flawed fatally. And Lando's out here saying, wow, you got paid millions to drive any car. Good rules or bad rules, fast or slow. Like, what are you? Who are you, Lando Norris? Did you not see the last race? Spa-Francorchamps. I thought we had consensus and were ready to make some proper decisions. But Lando Norris out here playing shill for Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Oh, the humanity continues. I think the more experience you have in Formula One, the better you should be. Listen, it is too much. It's our job, what we've been paid millions for, to drive any car you get given. But you have to do it. Nah, Lando. This is, I don't know, Lando. I disagree vehemently. I agree half. Okay, so F1 drivers are in a position of extreme privilege. They get to do what they love and get paid millions of pounds to do what millions and millions of people around the world will never ever get the privilege nor opportunity to do. F1 cars, drive them around the best tracks in the world. However, if you're talking about the rules and regs, you're never going to hear me say a positive word about them, because I understand the campaign, the not smear campaign, the propaganda that they're trying to put forth before the F1 zeitgeist, fans both new and old, with a view to try and convince them that there's nothing wrong here. You heard Stefano Domenicali, just for the avoidance of doubt, saying that F1 doesn't have a problem, that an overtake is an overtake. Behave yourself, Stefano Domenicali. All overtakes are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. This is yo-yo overtakes, which some might say don't even matter. Of course we have a problem, Stefano, but I'd argue the bigger problem here isn't the Mario Kart nor the yo-yo racing. It's the lack of legibility. It's the dishonesty, the flagrant dishonesty that the FIA and the FOM are trying to shove down our throats and tell us that F1 has never been better, when all the while our eyes and ears can see that there is problems, that these rules and regs set, I mean, they're nothing if not problematic. Fix your fudging rules, therefore, FIA. What are we doing here? This is nonsense. I've had enough. Can't sell this crap called F1. Not yet, they can't. Not under these rules and regs. I don't think he's shilling. He's just calling out George. And Max. How is he doing? That first one, look at this. I do think you can make a difference. After Max Verstappen saying you're not allowed to make a difference. It's a direct response. Lando looks like the type to stare at the mirror to remind himself he's the champion, says Dado. You might have to. Lando should chill. Sniff some lavender. The algorithms used to influence energy deployment are inconsistent. So far, it hasn't played well for George, nor has it played well for Oscar. He fumbles, says Dan Teeve, but I've never ever seen him cry about pointing fingers, indulging into ridiculous conspiracies. You can bet your bottom dollar Merck is doing free job of PR when sharing guilt. George is underperforming, says Tuna, but go on, this is going to be interesting now. George is underperforming, says Tuna, but at least he has a partial excuse because of PUs. What excuse did Lando have in the first half of 2025 and nearly being beaten by Max? And say, he'll be all right with his championship, won't he? Kimi makes all the difference, says Lazy. It's going to, well, let's see tomorrow. Because I suspect the Scuderia Ferrari, by dint of Lewis and Shaw, are going to come of age tomorrow and drop it on pole. Lest we forget, winningest driver in F1 history if Lewis drops this on pole tomorrow. 10 poles, 8 race victories. It could get a little bit techie. And again, it's one of those where you remember Sir Lewis this time last year saying that I'm looseless, and the only fix for this, for Scuderia Ferrari and their predicament, is to replace the driver. Going to get techie than techie things. The weird and wild wacky of F1 changes more and more by the second. You guys are little legends. I will catch you tomorrow 30 minutes before FP3. Between now and then, may all your sectors be purple.